Obinna, a hard-working man, returns from the city with his new wife, Adaeze. But his younger brother, Kelechi, secretly desires his wife. Through lies and deception, Kelechi turns the family against Obinna, forcing him into exile. But when Kelechi finally wins Adaeze's love, she discovers his dark secret that will shock you. Obinna was the pride of Umuoma Village. He was strong, hard-working, and kind. Everyone knew that if you needed help, Obinna would never say no. When he traveled to the big city, Lagos, to work, the entire village prayed for him. After 5 years, he returned home, not just with wealth but with a beautiful wife, Adaeze. She was everything a man could ask for. Humble, respectful, and beautiful. The village women envied her, and the men admired Obinna's luck. But in the shadows, someone else admired her too, Obinna's younger brother, Kelechi. Kelechi had always lived in Obinna's shadow. When they were young, Obinna was always the stronger one, the faster one, the smarter one. People praised Obinna and barely noticed Kelechi. So, when Obinna returned home with wealth, a big house, and a beautiful wife, Kelechi's heart burned with jealousy. Kelechi watched Adaeze whenever she walked past. He noticed how she smiled, how she spoke softly. He imagined what it would be like if she was his wife. Instead of Obinna's, his jealousy grew into something dark, something dangerous. One evening, when Obinna was away in the city to buy goods for his business, Kelechi saw Adaeze walking alone by the river, fetching water. He walked up to her, his heart pounding. "Good evening, Adaeze," he said, his voice too soft, too eager. She smiled politely. "Good evening, Kelechi. How is everything?" He wanted to say, "Everything would be better if you were mine." But he held his tongue. "You must be lonely when my brother is away," he said instead, watching her face carefully. Adaeze laughed, not knowing the danger hidden in his words. "Not at all. I know he will always return." That night, Kelechi lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He wanted her, and if he could not have her, he would make sure his brother lost everything. Kelechi started his plan slowly. He spread whispers in the village, small lies at first. "I heard Obinna is keeping another woman in the city. Obinna only married Adaeze for show. He doesn't really love her." The whispers grew, feeding on the tongues of those who loved gossip. Adaeze heard them. At first, she ignored them, but doubts began to creep into her heart. Then Kelechi made his move. One night, when Obinna was away again, Kelechi knocked on Adaeze's door. She hesitated but opened it. "There is something you must know," he said, his voice filled with fake sorrow. "I have tried to stay silent, but I can't anymore. My brother, he is not who you think he is." Adaeze's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Kelechi pulled out a letter, one he had written himself, pretending it was from another woman. It was filled with lies about Obinna's supposed secret life in the city. Adaeze read it, her hands shaking. "No, this can't be true." Kelechi sighed. "I wish it wasn't, Adaeze. But I am your friend. I only want to protect you." That night, Adaeze sat alone, her heart broken. When Obinna returned the next day, she refused to speak to him. She moved to another room. Obinna was confused. "What is wrong, my love?" he asked. "You know what you have done," she whispered. And so, the poison of Kelechi's lies spread. Obinna did not understand why his world was falling apart. The villagers no longer greeted him warmly. People whispered behind his back. His wife, his Adaeze, barely spoke to him. Then the worst happened. His business began to fail. His goods were stolen on the way to the market. Customers refused to buy from him. And one day, Adaeze left. She packed her things, her eyes filled with tears. "I cannot live with a liar," she said. Obinna was broken. "Who told you these lies? Who turned you against me?" But she only shook her head and walked away. Kelechi watched it all with a smile hidden behind fake sympathy. He had won. Obinna had lost everything. Or so he thought. because the gods were watching. Because karma always comes. And soon, Kelechi would learn that betrayal comes with a price. As time passed, Kelechi began to feel uneasy. His triumph no longer felt sweet. He had taken everything from his brother, but still, he could not shake the feeling that something was watching him. The elders of the village whispered that the spirits of the ancestors do not forgive treachery. Then strange things began to happen. Kelechi started having nightmares of faceless shadows whispering his name. His livestock mysteriously died. The river near his home dried up. Villagers began avoiding him, sensing an unseen darkness surrounding him. Then, one fateful night, as Kelechi lay asleep, he heard a knock on his door. He opened it, but no one was there, just the sound of the wind rustling the trees. When he turned back inside, he gasped. On his table lay the same letter he had forged to deceive Adaeze. But this time, the ink was dripping like fresh blood. He screamed, but no one came. He had brought this upon himself. The gods had decided his fate, and there was no escape. Meanwhile, Adaeze, lost and confused, wandered to a neighboring village where an old seer revealed the truth. Her husband had been faithful, and Kelechi had spun the web of lies. Guilt-stricken and heartbroken, Adaeze set out on a journey to find Obinna, not knowing whether he would ever forgive her. Obinna, now a broken man, had disappeared into the forest, living alone, away from the village that betrayed him. But fate was not done with him yet, for in the depths of the forest, a secret awaited, a path to redemption, but only if he was willing to fight for it. The story was far from over. The gods were not done watching, and Kelechi had yet to pay the full price of his sins. The spirits of the ancestors began haunting Kelechi day and night. His once proud home became a place of torment. Shadows whispered his name, and the villagers spoke of curses that no one could escape. Kelechi's wealth dwindled, and soon he found himself alone and desperate. But redemption was still possible for those willing to pay the price. Adaeze, with the help of the seer, set out on a dangerous path to find Obinna and bring justice to the man who had ruined their lives. Would Obinna forgive her? Would Kelechi's sins be washed away? Or would the gods claim their final judgment?